Good morning and a particularly warm welcome to Salzburg and to Salzburg University. It is a particular pleasure to be able to welcome you in my function as the chair of the board of Salzburg University. It is a double pleasure in that in my other life as a human rights person, I usually get to convey to people the idea that in intersectionality or multiple discrimination, as it were, and I usually have the impression that I have an audience in front of me who is utterly shocked and initially completely unable to relate to this very concept of intersectionality and multiple discrimination. And so to have the opportunity to speak to a group of people who not only have completely understood intersectionality, multiple discrimination, but to speak to people who carry it in their hearts and who have made it their mission to broaden understanding and to uphold the importance of that is a particular pleasure. Before I start with the official welcomes, I would like to warmly welcome those of you who've really traveled far to be here today. And I would like to particularly warmly welcome those of you who've put enormous effort into taking care of last-minute tasks and other matters that always jump up as you try to make your way to a conference. And then you sort of put all your faith into the coffee in the hotel bar, and those hopes get let down by the quality of the coffee. So those of you to whom that applies, a warm welcome to you. I am honored to welcome a couple of people, especially. I would like to start with the representative of the European Commission, Mrs. Schulze. Thank you for your passion and interest that has brought you here. I would also like to welcome a representative of the City Council, Mrs. Soyaya. We're really happy that you have made your way here. And then I would also warmly want to welcome the Vice Rector, Professor Rügel. So great to have you here. And obviously I can convey the very warm greetings of our Rector, Professor Büdenschul, who is sorry not to be here today, but he's on duty travel far away in Southeast Asia, fostering and sustaining the university's international relationships. Who am I to give you food for thought, as you are this group of people who have studied the pushback and the backlash that we see in terms of equality and particularly in terms of gender equality. Whether you're here from academia or whether you're here as a representative of civil society, and I understand it is a beautifully diverse group that has gathered here today, you have put a lot of thought and knowledge already into understanding and grappling with what is unfolding out there. But at the same time, I feel that as a human rights person, there are one or the other thing that I may contribute. And the one thing that I do want to contribute as a representative of the host of this event is encouragement and sustenance. And with that, maybe I can share a couple of thoughts. In trying to make sense of the flurry that is engulfing us, it seems, at the moment, and the fact that one really daily has the sense that the rules that we've played by so far are being completely undermined, that some of those seem to be vanishing or parting away underneath us. In that flurry, I am among those who are trying to read up, to understand, and there have been quite a few authors whose thoughts I was contemplating to share with you this morning. And then again, possibly you are in the same conundrum. There is this ongoing sense of information or things that are breaking, things that are happening, facts that are unfolding, Just yesterday there was this brilliant column by Roxane Gay in the New York Times about the difference between civility and uncivility and how that represents part of the discussion that you are having here today. Bless you. Bless you. The day before that, the International Labour Organization shared its annual report on social justice with some key findings on how equality is perceived in the world and how there's already an emerging trend that the United States of America is standing out in how equality and inequality are perceived and how disinformation is already impacting there. And then, as a multilateralist and a long-time advocate in the UN General Assembly, I cannot help but mention the fact that the UN General Assembly is opening this week with a woman chair in the multiple crises that are engulfing us, and with an emphasis on the importance of empowering women. And that has been drowned out by the noise that one man is able to create at the moment. To me, as a human rights person, what is essential is that we focus on the fact that we are subjects and that we stem this tide of being objectified. Maybe I could quote Timothy Snyder's On Freedom here for a moment. When we see other people as subjects like ourselves, we begin to gain objective knowledge about the world. And the eroding of empathy, the eroding of seeing others as having common ground, as Joe Cox famously said, we have more in common than divides us. And Joe Cox being yet another entry point for another important aspect of the debates that we're having about the pushback and the backlash. But that centrality of being a subject, as a human rights lawyer, I want to be sure that I convey two provisions from international human rights treaties to you, because I think that they require repetition, reminding, encouragement. One of them is a central provision within the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. That is the woman's right to legal capacity, and with that, the capacity and the right to act that capacity. And to remind us how far we've come since 1979, which is not that long ago, in the conclusion of this important treaty, not just in accepting that women's rights are human rights, as Mrs. Clinton famously proclaimed at the Beijing conference in 1993, breaking a hell of a lot of stereotypes as then in the role of the First Lady speaking to a multilateral conference. But the importance of yet again emphasizing that a distinction had to be drawn between the legal capacity and the capacity to act it. Let that sink in for a moment. That it was not sufficient, and as we perceive it today, it is still not sufficient to just say, de jure, we have the same rights. To get us to the de facto level of enjoying those rights, we need to also be allowed, need to proclaim the right that we have the right to act those rights. And then there is another provision that is pretty obscure, and I think quoted too infrequently, and that's why I wanted to bring it here and encourage you to use it as much as you can. That is the recognition of the right of everyone to enjoy the benefits of scientific progress and its applications. You are discussing scientific progress and its applications in the realm of democracy and equality. And I want to encourage you to utilize that right, particularly as public institutions academic institutions more largely are being attacked and their credibility being undermined. So this is Article 15, and for those of you who want to be really specific, Article 15, Para 1, let B, of the Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights, that lives a bit of a shadowy life in all the covenants that the UN have adopted, particularly the one on political rights. So the enjoyment of the benefits of scientific progress and its applications is really what is at the core of your debate. There's obviously the precious freedom of speech that has been under violent attack, particularly over the last few weeks, and that is coming under more and more scrutiny. As a form of encouragement, I also want to bring you an update from a joint statement by the UN Special Procedure mandate holders. Those are people who, in their individual expert capacity, get elected by the Human Rights Council of the United Nations to serve in various capacities. There is important work done on violence against women, important work done on LGBTIQ rights. There are country mandates on Belarus, on Ukraine, and many other dire human rights hotspots around the world. And these special mandate holders from time to time come together to issue joint statements. And they have just, over the last few weeks, issued one on the centrality of gender as a tool for advancing equality and all human rights. They talk about the diversity of lived experience, the importance of seeing the realities of people's lives, warnings about the misguided forms of protectionism and the essential role of evidence-based. There's one sentence that I wanted to quote back to you in this opening, and that is, gender is a vital analytical lens. It is essential to exposing power disparities, structural inequalities, and discriminatory practices embedded in laws, institutions, and social norms. And given what you have at stake and as a task over today's discussions, I thought it was fitting that there is encouragement or understanding from this level of the United Nations. In closing, what I would like to encourage you to do today, in addition to all these important discussions that you hold, is find not just the common ground, but also find ways to connect with people on whom you can fall back. I don't want to talk about self-care, I don't want to talk about networking, I want to talk about the very plain need to have like-minded people on whom you can fall back. And I can only speak for myself, but in my peer group, we did far too little of that back in the day. And so I want to encourage you to try and come away from this conference with a couple of phone numbers of people whom you feel comfortable calling up and just letting off. Whatever it is that you need to let go of, but that you seek specifically the support of people who can sustain you, because things are not going to get that much easier going forward, at least not for the immediate phase that we can see ahead. And I'm going to stop here in being philosophical about the things that I've seen in terms of progress in my time at the United Nations and the back force. I close with the one and only Gloria Steinem. Hope is a form of planning. Stay awesome.